verb hacer in Spanish means to do and or to make. In English, to do and to make can sometimes express the same action, but more than less, they have different meanings. For instance, no one ever says in English, I'm doing a cake or I'm making a workout. You instead say, I'm making a cake and I'm doing a workout, but if you want to say these things in Spanish, you don't have to think of which verb to use because in Spanish, hacer expresses both of these verbs, which is part of the reason why Spanish students have difficulties learning the difference between to do and to make. In Spanish, hacer means both to do and to make, and its conjugation actually follows the normal syntax of conjugating regular verbs ending in er. Tú haces, you do or make, él or ella usted hace, he does or makes, nosotros hacemos, we do or make, vosotros hacéis, y'all do or make, and ellos hacen, they do or make. One thing to note about the verb hacer is that it's considered to be an irregular verb when it comes down to the yo pronoun. You would want to say yo hazo, but Spanish says that this conjugation has a bad sound when the word is said, so you have to change one letter in the word to make it sound better. Instead of saying yo hazo, you need to say yo hago, and so hacer is considered to be irregular in the yo form. Not to mention that the topic of irregular verbs in the yo form is for a future video. As always, try not focusing on these pronouns because the phrases that you can make with them are mainly pointless. Nonetheless, hacer is actually a useful verb to practice on whenever you decide to listen to Spanish. The most common question that teachers ask students is ¿qué haces? Or ¿qué estás haciendo? Which means what do you do or what are you doing? Taking ¿qué estás haciendo as an example, typically, I've seen many students struggle with this question because they always replied with yo estoy haciendo and then whatever their continuation was. Logically looking at the statement, whenever somebody says what are you doing, it would not make sense to reply with I am doing whatever. Normally, you're going to reply with I am working, I am reading, or I am studying, or anything else that you want to say. These answers will fit the question far better than simply saying I am doing whatever. And the reason why many students struggle with this question is because they're introduced to the topic of hacer before they learn the present progressive in Spanish. Additionally, some students might not understand the question completely because they never learn how to listen in Spanish, which is a key element in any language that you want to learn. Essentially, the verb hacer is very useful in asking questions like ¿qué haces? Or ¿qué estás haciendo? Because you can reply with the same answer in two different formats. Taking estudiar as an example, which means to study, if somebody asks you ¿qué haces?, you can reply with yo estudio or yo estoy estudiando, which means I study or I am studying. The best advice that I can give is to always look at these phrases in English and visually translate them in your head, say them in English in your head, and then say them in Spanish out loud. ¿Qué estás haciendo? Literally and visually means what are you doing? And if you want to say I am learning, let's say, you would begin the sentence by saying yo estoy, and then you need to know the word to learn, which is aprender. Following the syntax of the present progressive of verbs ending in er or ir, you would say yo estoy aprendiendo. And of course, you can repeat this process multiple times until you can fully construct phrases with no hesitation and actually understand what you're saying whenever somebody is asking you ¿qué estás haciendo? With more practice, the phrases that you can make will become limitless. At last, the verb hacer also has an interesting usage in some weather expressions. Considering these words as temperature and weather, if you want to say that the weather is hot or cold, you would say it's hot or it's cold in English. In Spanish, however, you would want to say está calor or está frío, but actually it would be wrong because Spanish says that you have to begin these phrases with hace, which means it makes or it does. And the reason why weather expressions start like that is because hacer describes the feeling of the weather, as in it makes it hot or it makes it cold, which explains why you have to say hace calor or hace frío. Even though it's an interesting application of hacer, I wouldn't call it something useful, but it's something that's worth acknowledging. Also, Spanish has some meaningful verbs that actually change their definition once hacer is plugged into their syntax. For instance, you may have the action hacer la compra, which translates as to do or to make the shopping, but it actually means to go shopping. You might also see this action, hacer ejercicio, which means to do or to make an exercise, but moreover, it simply means to exercise or to work out. And once again, these actions may be interesting to know, but not very useful to say whenever you speak Spanish. This has been the verb hacer in Spanish. Thank you for watching this video, and hopefully I made your learning just a bit simpler.